What is due diligence in a real estate contract? Well, simply put, is a period of time after the contract for the sale of real estate is signed, during which the buyer can back out for any reason or for no stated reason at all. So, how does this work in the context of real life? Well, the date that a contract for the sale of real estate is signed, known as the binding agreement date, the clock starts ticking on a number of important things that have to happen before closing. The two most important things for the buyer are payment of the earnest money and due diligence. Now, earnest money is a sum of cash that the buyer puts down basically to show that they're serious, that they've got skin in the game. And there's no hard and fast rule about how much this money is, but conventionally it's about 1% of the purchase price. So for a $250,000 home, it would be $2,500. And usually this is paid the day of the binding agreement or within 3 days or so afterwards, unless there's some extenuating circumstances that require more time. But ordinarily it's paid pretty quickly. Now, the due diligence period, the clock starts ticking on that on binding agreement date as well. And that can often be a week to 2 week period during which the buyer has the opportunity to do further investigation on this house that they're now under contract to buy. They can check out the neighborhood, they can check out the local schools, they can do any of the things that they might have done before they signed the contract but haven't had time to get to because they wanted to lock down the seller on this house that they really like. They can also hire a home inspector, a professional who will go in and examine the house from top to bottom and sometimes fly a drone over the top of the house to examine it from that angle as well. They'll produce a multi-page report, 30 to 50, even longer sometimes, page report with pictures and diagrams and arrows and commentary explaining everything that they found about the house that might be a potential problem or a concern for a homeowner. Now, every house has issues. Even brand new construction has some things that the homeowner might want to know about, whether or not they're a serious problem that needs addressing. The home inspection report is something that's paid for by the buyer. It needs to be scheduled within this due diligence period for reasons I'll get to in just a second. And when they get it, they'll be able to have this list and explanations of all the things that might be issues with the house that they might want the seller to address before they go forward with the deal. The cost of a home inspection, by the way, it's going to run several $100s. Depends on the company that does it. Depends on the square footage of the house and things like that. I don't want to be nailed down to any particular price because that's not my work, but think between $400 and $600 and you'll at least be in the right ballpark. And that's the buyer's expense that cannot be recovered, but it's great information, very important information to know. Once they get this report, which hopefully is within a few days of the binding agreement, they will have this list of potential issues, and they can work with their realtor to draft an amendment to the binding agreement. In Georgia, it's known as an amendment to address concerns. And they would list the things that are really issues for them, things that they would really like the seller to address one way or another in order to keep the contract going. So let's say you have 30 things that the inspection report turns up that might be of concern, and say a half a dozen of them are of real concern to the buyer. Like they may think that they can repaint that bedroom themselves or they can do some minor repair themselves, but let's say there's a half a dozen things they really would like addressed. So they would put those in the amendment to address concerns. The seller gets this amendment, consults with family, with their agent. The seller's response may be, okay, I'll agree to fix all of these things. I'm not going to fix any of these things. I'll fix these 3, but not those 3. Or how about I just reduce the price a little bit so you can fix it later on, and you won't have to be out of pocket for that. However the seller answers, the buyer then has an opportunity to decide, okay, now the deal stands here. Should I go back and forth and try and negotiate a little bit better deal? Should I accept what the seller has said? Hopefully, in a relatively short time, they'll come to some agreement about what to do going forward. And this will all happen within the due diligence period, because if they can't come to an acceptable amended agreement over these repairs, over this new information that the buyer now has about the house, then during the due diligence period, the buyer can back out for any reason or for no stated reason at all, get their earnest money back. Now, they won't be able to get a refund of the home inspection costs because they paid a third party to do that. But they will know a lot more about the house. They'll have a better understanding of what they're getting into going forward. They'll have a better deal because both parties understand what it is that they're dealing with. And once the due diligence period is over, both sides are pretty much locked in, and it's a straightforward path to closing. Fingers crossed.